Hi, I'm Tom with Tom's Biological Videography. I'm a biological researcher and I work in the field of land conservation here in the South Carolina Lowcountry. And as many of you know from my videos, I have an extensive collection of eastern box turtles, some of which are wild caught, but the majority of which are captive born that I've raised from eggs, some of which all the way up to adulthood. I've been rearing eastern box turtles since I was in kindergarten. I've been caring for them and raising them from hatchlings all the way up to adults for going on 21 years now, since I was yay tall. Now, caring for these little buggers is the lion's share of the reason why I went into the field of wildlife biology. It's why I decided that land conservation was the most important thing for me to be doing to protect our wildlife here in South Carolina. And the reason why I'm talking about this today is that as of October 2020, Act 177 has been passed by the State House in South Carolina, and it is now illegal for anyone in the state without special permits to possess more than 2 eastern box turtles. And I have 90 days to comply if I would like to apply for a special permit in order to keep my current collection, or I need to divest myself of my turtles. And I'm here today to tell you that I am going to be divesting myself of the vast majority of my box turtle collection. And I'd also like to state right now that I think Act 177 is awesome. South Carolina has been miles behind other states as far as passing laws that protect our native wildlife, specifically our amphibians and reptiles, and acutely our turtles. Previous regulations were basically bag limits, daily bag limits, not even daily, incidental bag limits. You could not have more than 10 turtles in your vehicle at any point in time, period. And this only applied to specific species of turtle on top of that. These are ludicrous laws. They essentially offer no protection at all to our native turtles. And so I think Act 177 is awesome. It has been dreadfully needed in this state for years, and it's finally here. And I've also been, this is something I've been wrestling with for years, ever since I went off to college, and I realized the ethical shakiness of what we had been doing, that, you know, just as a child, a naive, ignorant child with no understanding of ecology, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. You know, we've over the years collected probably 24 eastern box turtles from the wild, full-grown adults, some of which from perfectly good habitat, and just put them into captivity. And no one should be doing that. But to, you know, the average untrained person like what I was as a child, that thought doesn't even occur to you. You know, there's turtles everywhere. There used to be turtles all over the place. You know, we used to find, you know, 4 or 5 a year. Now I'm lucky if I see 2 box turtles a year. And I probably drive 30,000 miles in the state of South Carolina every year. And I'm lucky if I see 3 eastern box turtles. I usually see about 2. We used to see a dozen a year. And that was, you know, only being in the car for maybe 15,000 miles a year. And that's because of those concerns I had that I mentioned earlier about land conservation and why that's important for our native wildlife. Eastern box turtles are acutely at risk for habitat fragmentation, destruction, and degradation. What happens is that an eastern box turtle has a very small home range. They can stay in a tiny area of woodlot their entire lives, years, decades, over a century sometimes. And what will happen is eventually that woodlot will get sold and it'll get developed, and those turtles will flee, and there will be nothing, nowhere for them to go. They'll be surrounded by highways, parking lots, and subdivisions on all sides, and those turtles are doomed. And many of these wild-caught box turtles that I have, probably about half of them, that's how we acquired them. We essentially rescued them. They were living in a, you know, small 5-acre woodlot somewhere that got sold and was getting developed into a commercial venture, a church, a restaurant, you know, a storage unit area, an apartment complex, something like that, and the turtles would flee. And they'd be surrounded by major roads on two sides, subdivisions all across another, and, you know, pine plantation over here. Just not good habitat. Box turtles can survive in pine plantations, but not easily. They really need edge habitat within those habitats to be able to survive at all. It is a severely degraded habitat as far as they're concerned. Now, to get back off of that tangent, this is something I've been wrestling with for many years. After I realized the ethical shakiness of what I'd been doing, once I got to college and started, you know, learning about R-type species like these that really suffer from habitat fragmentation and human-induced mortality or translocation, I stopped collecting turtles from the wild right there. And a few years later, I released 6 more out into the wild in good habitat where I was able to find it. However, it's not just as easy as just releasing these turtles out into the wild. Eastern box turtles have several complicating factors in their ecology that make reintroduction not as cut and dry as you'd like to think. That's why I've been wrestling with this for years and hadn't taken the jump. But now I'm being pushed, so I'm going to have to leap. The first complicating factor with eastern box turtles is that they're very dependent on their home range. They sort of have a home range is an area that an animal spends the vast majority of its time in. Eastern box turtles are extremely sedentary. They spend decades in one location, you know, only within, you know, a 5-acre woodlot their entire lives. So just picking them up and dropping them out into the wild, they have to reestablish that home range. They have to find the landmarks. They have to find the water sources, the food sources, the hibernacula, the sunny areas where they can sun themselves, that sort of thing. And to further complicate, you know, them needing to establish a home range, eastern box turtles also have a sort of coarse ability to geolocate. I haven't looked into the research in a couple years, but when I did, the consensus seemed to be that they had some rough ability to geolocate to the magnetic field lines of the Earth, similar to how many birds do, but, you know, not as precise as something like a homing pigeon, but, you know, they can sort of like an internal compass that they can reset to their home range, so that if, you know, they get swept away in a flood or picked up and carried by a raccoon or a coyote or something, they can turn around and return a couple miles back to where they need to be. So when you pick up a box turtle and you move it 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 miles from where it's been, it gets all sorts of confused and it gets a little stressed out, and it tries to return to where it was before. And from the research I've seen, it can take up to 3 months for these turtles to basically reset that geolocation to a new home range. So I've been trying to figure out the most efficient way to do this, the best way to do this for the turtles, to improve their success as much as possible, and all that's thrown out the window. The passing of Act 177 was not properly timed for their ecology, which, you know, it's politics, so you can't blame them there, but it's October right now. If I'm going to release these turtles into the wild, I need to do it now, because they're going to start hibernating within the next month. Within the next 2 or 3 weeks, the temperatures are going to drop and they're going to start going into hibernation. So I have to do something now. I can't wait. Can't wait the 90 days. It'll be January by then. It would have been ideal to release them in, say, April, when temperatures start to warm up. They would naturally be waking up from hibernation. However, this does work out in a way, because, you know, they may geolocate over winter. I don't think these turtles are going to wander. I think their natural drive to hibernate is going to be stronger than that. And they should go into hibernation, and with any luck, they will reorient over the 4-month hibernation period. Another complication is that they need a very small area of adequate habitat. And when they're geolocating, they're going to continue until they hit an obstruction, a physical obstruction. Usually down here on the coast, that's going to be hydrological, a river, a creek, something that a massive swamp, something that they cannot pass. So you have to be very careful about where you place them so that when they try to return roughly to where they were before, they hit some sort of obstruction that provides adequate habitat. And so that when they get stuck in that stressed out situation trying to reorient, they're in a place where they can survive and they have their needs met. So you want to place them with, say, a bottomland perpendicular where they're going, so that when they hit it, they're in a habitat with sufficient food, with sufficient water, with sufficient hibernacula, that when they reorient, they'll be where they need to be. And on that same note, you don't want there to be a major road anywhere in that trajectory in case they get through it. You don't want them getting out on the highway and just getting splattered. That's not a good thing. That is the #1 way these turtles die. And these are extremely long-lived species. So you also need to think about the chronology of it. You don't want to put them on just some random woodlot, with a for sale sign on the side of it. You need to think about that context. That property gets sold, it's going to get clear cut. And those turtles are going to move. And they're going to move in a random direction. And you don't want them, being stranded. Now, working in the field of land conservation here in the South Carolina Low Country, and doing GIS analysis and mapping for a living, I'm in an ideal situation to know where the best places for these turtles are. I know the lay of the land, I know the elevation, I know where the wetlands exist, I know the properties that are permanently protected forever by conservation easements or state restrictions. So I know the places to put these turtles. I also know the places where the population is not at carrying capacity, areas that are hydrologically bounded on all sides, the sea islands, places that were farmed from end to end in agriculture for decades, centuries on end, where I know that the box turtle population has not recovered. I'm specifically thinking of Edisto Island, where I work every day. I can't think of the last time I've seen a box turtle on Edisto. But I can't not think of good habitat on Edisto. There's plenty of places, and most of these places are protected permanently by land trusts. And these are the ideal places to reintroduce these turtles. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be weighing my turtles for the last time, getting my last data point in my multi-decade study on the maturation of juvenile turtles and just the general, way that these turtles hold weight in captivity. And then I'm going to be loading them up in these boxes, taking them down, and releasing them. Both wild-caught adults and captive-raised juveniles. I've been hesitant about releasing juveniles because I didn't want to, introduce artificial, genetic bottlenecks, because many of these juveniles all share the same parents. I didn't want to mess with, the natural genetic flow by introducing potentially inferior genes, because these turtles have been raised in captivity, so they're not necessarily adapted to the natural world. But I think I'm just overthinking that. This is only one generation of turtles that are totally unrelated, and I mean these being such a sedentary species, I think they have some natural adaptations for genetic bottlenecks. There's not too much gene flow going on in eastern box turtles. So that's it. I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to no longer have eastern box turtles here in the future, at least not in any significant numbers. I'm going to be returning all of my 36+ turtles to the wild, some of them putting them in the wild for the first time in their lives. And I'm only going to be keeping 4, and I'm going to be applying for the permit for special exemption in order to keep those 4. Just sort of this was the thing that they put in place for all of the existing collections that were already in the state, which was nice of them to do. However, there's a lot of extra red tape that comes along with that. I have to do shell marking on all of them, and I just have turtles that are too young to shell mark. So, and, you know, shell marking and keeping track and documenting that for 30 plus turtles is not going to be an easy task. So I've been wanting to release these guys into the wild, so I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to be keeping the 4 turtles that I don't think are fit to return to the wild. I have Scooter, who has a genetic birth defect. He's got some sort of dwarfism. His skeletal structure never fully formed. He's, I think, 16, 17 years old now, and he's this big. He's a circle. I have Sheldon, who is a turtle that a friend of mine rescued from captivity, who was living in somebody's apartment, who is probably older than Scooter and is about the same size. He's about that shape. He's severely stunted from improper nutrition during his youth, and she is not fit to be released into the wild either. And then I have 2 captive raised turtles that have had serious damage to their face, and they're just not in a shape at the moment to be released into the wild. I have Roddy, who got attacked by a black rat, who just tore the front of his nostrils clean off. And he got attacked twice by the same rat in about a matter of a month before I finally caught the thing. He's not in good shape. He's stunted as well. I don't know if he's ever going to be in a shape to be returned to the wild. And I have Ellie, who is I think a 14, 15-year-old captive raised turtle, and I introduced her into the adult pen, and she got attacked by an overly aggressive male, and it broke the front of her beak off, and she's currently healing, and she can't go out into the wild. So those 4 turtles I'm going to have to hold on to indefinitely, specifically Sheldon and Scooter, unless I can find someone to take Sheldon and maybe Roddy or Ellie, but I'm going to be keeping Scooter forever. And if I can get it back down to 2 turtles eventually, then I don't need to have the permit anymore. I don't need to do the shell marking or all that jazz. So that's the state of affairs. The turtle project is coming to an end, and I guess this gives me a convenient stopping point to end my research, and I can finally go ahead and do some analysis on that, see if I can publish any of that, because I do have some interesting high resolution detailed data on the growth rate of eastern box turtles in captivity from, you know, year 1 all the way up to sexual maturity, which I've got 4 turtles that are hitting sexual maturity right now. You know, they're going through the transition process into a fully grown adult. So yeah, that's it. It's the end of the turtles. No more corn feeding. And I hope they fare well out there. I'm going to be putting them in fantastic habitat where I know they're going to be safe forever. Properties that, you know, with any luck, I'm going to be the guy stewarding the easement, so I'll know better than anybody that they're going to be safe. That's my hope, at least. It's bittersweet. You know, I owe these turtles a lot. The reason why I'm in this field is because of these guys. You know, it was. I love them. They're pets. That's what they are. But I got too many of them, and we're about to move, and I was already trying to figure out, you know, and I've got too many as it is. This enclosure is not ideal. They're too close together, and I was getting ready to build an enclosure about 4 times the size to put these guys in permanently, to keep the males separate, to keep hatchlings from being raised in the future. And I'm glad I didn't start on that, because that would have been a lot of wasted lumber. But it's just sad to see them go. But it's for the best. It's for the best for this state. It's for the best for our wildlife, and I'm glad this law was finally passed. I just glad it wasn't a month later, or I would have been screwed. Now, some of these turtles, they have nowhere to go. Like Franklin, she came from my next door neighbor's house. You know, she was living in this subdivision for probably 30 years. And that's just how much green space we have here, and some of the pre-existing wildlife habitat, but she was living in a subdivision for 30 years after it was developed. This used to be a longleaf pine flatwoods before they built all the houses. Rotini, right there. She came from a property that's now a church, bounding a major road and a major highway with a 6-foot barbed wire chain link fence across the highway, and a mobile home park to the south and apartments to the north. She's got nowhere to go. I can't return her to her native habitat. Sunny down there in the water dish. She came from a bottomland hardwood forest that just got logged last year, and I'm afraid they're probably going to develop that after the fact. Well, it's under developmental restrictions, but, you know, they logged the absolute snot out of it. You know, it was massive acreage of bottomland forest. It's just a wet hellscape right now. So I can't take her back there, and there's development happening on all sides. Let's see, Ash right there behind the post to the left. She actually came from my yard, my family land way out in the country, and I'm gonna put her right back where I got her. The same goes with Tortellini. She's on a family land out there too, a little bit further up the road, and I'm inclined to just stick her right back where we got her. She was probably one of our first turtles. We've had her for 20 plus years, and she was old when we got her. She's, you know, probably a 70 plus year old turtle, you know. And right over there, Darlene. I think that's Darlene. Might be Caroline. Can't really tell. I think it's Darlene. We raised her from an egg. She's about 15, 16 years old. You know, she's never been out in the wild. You know? And like Enrique back there, I don't even remember where he came from. You know, it's a whole grab bag. Some of these turtles, I can put them right back where I got them, like Tortellini and Ash. Some of them, like Franklin and Rotini, I can't in good faith return them to where they were, because they'll just die. You know? I mean, I can probably release Franklin out behind the house if I really wanted to, but just not good habitat. I'd much rather put her someplace, you know, where I know it's going to be preserved forever, where you know, it's never going to be leveled and turned into a housing development that gets, you know, woodland converted into lawn that gets mowed twice a week, because that's unusable habitat. And last thing you want is a box turtle going out and getting hit with a bush hog blade at 3,000 RPM and being turned into spaghetti. That's the problem with trying to release them out here in suburbia. And I can't put them in my yard because, you know, we got to mow the grass too. Oh, here's Roddy. As you can tell, he's kind of messed up. He had a black rat chew his face off, and then that caused him to get an ear infection, and then he couldn't pull his head in, and then the rat came back and it chewed his face off again, and I eventually caught that sucker, and the turtles ate it. But he's not in a good way, and I just don't feel right releasing him into the wild until he's got some more years on him, and hopefully he can recover his face a bit. This is Scooter, and he's our oldest captive-born box turtle. He's a couple years older than Darlene over there. I think he was born in 2003. And yeah, he's got some sort of skeletal dwarfism. I don't know, he's always been short. It's not a nutritional thing because he's fed the exact same diet she was. And they all matured just fine. So I don't know what his problem is. It's something genetic. This here is Sheldon. A friend of mine found her at a house party in somebody's apartment, and could just tell by looking at her that she was not in a good way. So I don't know if he asked her or if he just stole her, but he knew, or actually he didn't even know I had turtles. He just knew that this turtle was not in a good way, and he showed it to a mutual friend, and he told him I had turtles, and he called me up, and I more than happily took her. But she's already got signs of being fully mature. Those red eyes, she had them when we got them. But she has not put on like any weight since after like the first few months we had her. She's the same weight as Scooter, so I've got no idea how old this turtle is. This turtle could be 20 plus years old, but it's severely stunted due to nutritional deficiencies when she was young, so can't release her into the wild. She'll just get, chewed up and swallowed by a raccoon or a coyote or something. This here is Alien. She is in bad shape. I brought her into the adult pen after she got too large for the juvenile pen, and she's not much smaller than Darlene over there, maybe about 50 grams or so, and for whatever reason she just got bullied hard. One of the males, probably Enrique, maybe Flip, just tore into her, and they ripped her shell off. They bit her face off. I mean, it could have been a rat attack and then just got, exacerbated by, male mating pressure. I don't know, but she got messed up. Her whole front of her beak is missing. Her nose is missing. She's missing a lot of her shells. She can't go back into the wild at this stage. She's probably gonna have to live in captivity forever. Hasn't hurt her appetite at all. She can eat just fine. I may need to trim her beak somewhat, but yeah, she's gonna have to stay. I don't know. She probably needs veterinary attention too in the future, but she's not fit to be re-released.
Seems like a nice moisture. There's water down there.
Yeah. There's plenty of ditches all throughout here. It's all real low, lots of clay.
Cool.
All protected. All captive raised here. Goes Ace, Darlene, Betty, Eileen, Ziggy, I think that's Bryn, and Hill. Another protected property. Caroline, Francis, Holly,
We've had the longest.
Enrique, and Rotini. Polly. Forget who you are. You're a Zaclaim. You are Luma. Zodiac. Wait, no, you're Polly. You're Neji. Toucan. No. You're Neji. Ah. And you're no, you're Three Dog. You're Toucan. Just set them out wherever where there's a lot of litter. Yep. These are this year's hatchlings. Got a lot of them. Just ran into the manager of this property, and luckily I got to tell him we were doing this. So he'll send me a photo if he ever sees him again. 22 hatchlings. 2 from last year and 1 from 3-4 years ago. And here we are. Franklin, Tortellini, Yeller, Ebony and Jujube. There they go. Yeller we just picked up a few months ago. She was in the middle of our neighborhood. A neighbor of mine cleaned out his backyard for the first time in 10 years. He hadn't cut grass in 10 years. And she came out of there. So after that habitat was destroyed, there was no place to put her back. So bringing her out here to a cousin's property. This is hopefully soon to be protected, and I don't think it's ever going to be developed. Plus this is all wetland, so it would be hard for someone to develop it. They could log it, but they couldn't really develop it. And, she's just running off. It's Franklin. Personal favorite of mine. Found her in the next door neighbor's yard. Walked up and was on their doormat. Jujube came from behind our house in the other neighbor's yard. Ebony's a movie star. She's been in 2 TV productions. What was it? The Outer Banks and some straight-to-TV movie with Jim Belushi, I think, that she was in. Forget the name of that. But yeah, she's a movie star. And there's Tortellini. She's our oldest surviving turtle. She just came from about maybe half mile up the road, so I'm bringing her over here to where there's slightly better habitat. There goes Yeller. These are the turtles I cared about the most. That's why I'm bringing them over here where they're still close to home on family land. Here are the last 2, Ash and Norman. And they're going right out here onto this protected property, right next door to my house. This used to be family land, but they'll be safe here and there, just a stone's throw from the house we're moving to. So, with any luck, I'll be seeing them again. Ash and Norman, both are actually originally from this property. So, cousin's dog brought Norman over to the house one day, and we found Ash crossing the road, and since she had so much damage from the prescribed burns that happened over here, we took her in. But doesn't seem to bother her at all, so we're letting him back go right here in the next to the house. So with any luck, we'll be seeing him again. And those are the last 2 of my wild caught and captive reared turtles, except for the 4 that I medically excluded and going to be keeping until further notice. And thus ends our 20-year eastern box turtle rescue efforts here in the Low Country, and the 20+ years of growth and maturation research I've been doing. And farewell to my oldest pets, for lack of a better term. That's it. Time out.